Navy SEAL blocked her entry, then Iron Ghost made the entire war room freeze in salute. Civilian access to this facility ends right here, sweetheart. Turn around before someone has to make you. The words drop into the operations corridor like a blade falling across still water. Not a slash, not a swing. Just the quiet declaration of a cutting edge arriving at rest, in front of 31 people who can hear every syllable through the reinforced glass panel in the war room door. Captain Derek Ryland does not need to raise his voice. The corridor is designed for acoustics, low ceiling, poured concrete, a white noise system running at the frequency that keeps conversations from traveling in the wrong direction, but does nothing to muffle the carrying quality of a man who has spent 6 years practicing the kind of authority that does not ask permission. He is standing in the war room doorway at 1400 hours with his arms crossed and a small, precise smile. And behind him through the glass, 31 of the most classified minds currently operating in the Pacific Theater are beginning to look up from the mission architecture table. The operations corridor of Naval Special Warfare Command's Tier 1 Planning Center sits 12 feet below grade beneath an administrative building whose name does not appear on any public-facing base directory. Filtered air. Fluorescent lighting dialed to the color temperature that keeps people sharp through extended shifts. The smell of recycled air and warm electronics, and the particular petroleum and metal smell that accumulates in the clothing of people who spend enough time with weapons and machinery that it has become indistinguishable from their own biology. Everything in this space has been designed to exclude. The SEAL standing between her and the war room door is 6 feet 2, 240 pounds, his uniform carrying the specific indicators of an operator with real water under his career, not a ceremonial post. He has his arms crossed, not aggressively, just there. The kind of stance that communicates the conversation is already over before it has started. She is 33 years old. She does not look it, or rather, she looks something other than an age, worn in a specific way, the kind of wear that comes from extended field time in uncontrolled environments rather than from years passing in the ordinary way. Civilian clothes that are correct for a base visitor, but carry the faint wrongness of clothes chosen entirely for function, with no additional consideration given to appearance. A backpack over one shoulder that is heavier than it looks, and that she has not adjusted once in the 90 seconds she has been standing here. Hair down, loose, unmilitary, and her hands still at her sides. Her eyes move through the corridor in the quiet, deliberate pattern of someone running a threat assessment without appearing to conduct one. There is no rank insignia anywhere on her person. No identification lanyard. Nothing that should allow her anywhere near this building. She breathes with the controlled rhythm of someone who has been breathing deliberately under pressure for a very long time. 4 counts in, hold 4. 4 counts out, hold 4. Though only one person in this corridor is watching closely enough to notice. She has not moved. Ryland steps out of the war room doorway and into the corridor specifically because the glass is there and the people behind it are watching. He performs for the room, and the room is 31 people, and 31 people is the kind of audience he runs best for. I don't know who let you through the outer checkpoint, he says, but this facility runs at Tier 1 classification. Tier 1 does not accommodate walk-ins, contractors, or a pause, timed precisely, whatever category you're filing yourself under today. The SEAL does not move, not toward her, not away. Present, the kind of stillness that has nothing to do with passivity. She looks at Rollin. I'm aware of the classification tier, Captain, 7 words. Even, without inflection in either direction. Then she looks back at the door. Over Rollin's shoulder, inside the war room, a man named Master Chief Victor Stahl has stopped moving. 63 years old. 38 years of service. Retired from Tier 1 operations 7 years ago, and brought back as a senior tactical consultant, because some institutional knowledge cannot be replicated within the timeline it takes to build it from scratch. He was at the planning table when she appeared at the glass. Something happened in him when he saw her that he has not yet been able to name. His pen stopped. He set it down, very carefully, without taking his eyes off the corridor. He is watching through the reinforced glass now, with the expression of a man who is trying to remember something that is returning to him slowly, piece by piece, from a place he has not visited in a long time. His jaw tightens. He adds what he is seeing to a picture he is not yet conscious of building. By 1415, the story has reached every corner of the war room. The operators nearest the glass saw it first. The woman in civilian clothes, the seal holding the door, Rollins' performance in the corridor. By 1410, the intelligence officers at the secondary planning table had the summary. By 1415, everyone in the room has a version of it, and the version circulating involves a civilian with bad judgment and a facility access code that does not work, and Ryland doing his job with the characteristic efficiency that has made him the commanding officer of this operation. The mood in the room is the particular mood of professionals who have paused from a serious task to observe a small spectacle and will return to the task shortly. Stahl has not returned to his task. He is watching her through the glass with the specific attention of a man assembling a picture from its component pieces. The picture he is building is not the one the rest of the room is building. At 1412, Rollin escorts her to a position against the far corridor wall, not physically, but through the social architecture of authority, and begins a formal access denial procedure that requires her to produce identification. She removes a credential packet from the front pocket of the backpack. He takes it. He holds it the way men hold things when the act of holding communicates more than whatever the object contains. While we process this, he says, "You'll want to explain to me how you cleared the outer perimeter." "Standard visitor processing," she says. "I was expected. Not by anyone I spoke with this morning." "No," she says, "not by anyone you spoke with." Something flickers across his face, just for a heartbeat, then it is gone. He opens the packet. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4. At 1418, she says something that stops Rollin's review of the packet completely. The secondary exfil route change from 12:30 hours today, the one that moved the northern corridor to grid reference Bravo 7, hasn't been incorporated into the current mission board. If your operators are running the 0300 window with the old architecture, you have a problem that cannot be fixed between now and launch. Rollin's hands flatten on the credential packet. The route change was made at 12:30 and distributed only through the internal planning network. It has not been pushed to any external database. The only people who know about Bravo 7 are in the war room, and every one of them is watching through the glass right now. He stares at her. "How do you know about Bravo 7? Not a question. Too flat for a question. Operation Hollow Read is built on a targeting architecture that was completed 14 months ago, she says. I know about Bravo 7 because I built the targeting architecture. Inside the war room, Stahl has turned fully toward the corridor. He is no longer pretending to look at anything else. His pen is still on the planning table where he left it. He will not pick it up for a while. Ryland steps back half a foot. The small backward movement of a man recalibrating without wanting to be seen recalibrating. He looks at the seal at the door. The seal looks at him. Something passes between them in the way that things pass between trained men who have worked together long enough. A shared question, a shared absence of an answer. Ryland turns back to her. Nobody builds hollow reed targeting architecture. That architecture was assembled by a multi-source intelligence team over 18 months. 14, she says. And the team was one person. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. When Rollin steps forward, closing the space by 1 foot, not because he needs to be closer, but because the foot of distance communicates something he wants communicated, her feet shift. Just slightly. Not a retreat. Her weight redistributes to the balls of her feet in a stance that has nothing to do with civilian defensive posture, the specific adjustment of someone reading a space rather than reacting to it. Assessment, not fear. The SEAL at the door notices. His expression does not change, but something behind it does. Stahl, from 12 feet away through reinforced glass, notices something different. He notices that the shift is automatic, below conscious decision. Drilled in at 1424, through the glass, he watches her sleeve slide 2 inches as she adjusts the backpack strap. Just for a moment. Long enough to see the edge of something on the inside of her forearm, not the whole of it. Not enough to read, but enough to see that something is there. He cannot see the detail. He does not need to. He moves to the war room door. He stands in it for 3 seconds, looking at the corridor, looking at her specifically, with the particular expression of a man who has just confirmed something he had been refusing to confirm. He goes back to the planning table, but he does not sit down. By 1435, Rollin has decided to escalate. Her credential packet has no obvious irregularity, but it also has no authorization pathway he can trace in the time available before the mission briefing resumes. He orders her credentials held. He orders her escorted to the utility room 3 doors down the corridor, a spare space used for equipment storage, pending a formal security review that he intends to function as a mechanism to have her removed from the building entirely. She cooperates. Without expression, without protest. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. Her watch is on her left wrist, and nobody has asked for it. She planned for this. 8 feet by 6. Concrete floor. 1 folding chair pushed against the wall, a utility shelf carrying cleaning supplies that have not been moved in several months. A ventilation duct in the ceiling pushing recycled air at a temperature 3 degrees lower than the corridor. No window. She sits in the chair. She does not examine the door or the vent or the shelf. She checks her watch. This is the near-fail moment. The point where anyone watching from outside this door would call it finished. A civilian with a credential irregularity, held in a utility room, waiting for the security review that will result in her removal from the building before the 1900 mission brief. Anyone looking at this from the outside would call it over. Except the door is the wrong thing to be watching. Her watch reads 1441. In 19 minutes, at 1500, an automated protocol she initialized before she arrived at this building will flag as unresolved at a monitoring station she does not need to name to people who need to know it. The flag reads contact overdue, ghost protocol active. That flag routes simultaneously to 4 terminals at 4 locations, none of which appear in any base directory. In 53 minutes, at 1534, the flag, authenticated at the first terminal, will generate a secondary authorization packet attaching to her identity profile and elevating it to a classification tier that will make the War Room's current classification look like a public access document. In approximately 90 minutes, at roughly 1611, Captain Derek Rylan will come to understand the specific, irreversible difference between the kind of classified operation he commands and the kind that moves underneath it, through it and past it, in a layer of the architecture he did not know existed. Her watch is still on her wrist. No one asked for it. She has carried it through 14 operations in 4 countries. It has never been in an evidence bag. She had been declared killed in action 3 years ago. The report was filed correctly. The ceremony was held. Her name is on a memorial wall in a building in Virginia that does not have a public address. There is a folded flag somewhere that was given to someone who has not yet been told it was premature. 14 months after the Kia notification, she completed the mission she had gone dark to complete. Because the mission had not been finished when the aircraft went down, and incomplete missions have a way of continuing to cost other people's lives, while the record says otherwise. She does not think about the memorial wall often. She thinks about it tonight, briefly, the way you think about a thing you have put aside and will deal with later, when the work that is still unfinished has been finished. The network she mapped during those 14 months has provided targeting data responsible for the deaths of 14 American operators over 18 months. The intelligence in the war room down the corridor, the intelligence that Operation Hollow Reed is built on, that the mission architecture table is covered in, is hers, gathered while she was officially a casualty. The operators running the O300 window tomorrow morning will run it on targeting built by a woman the record says is dead. She intends to be in the room when it launches. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. 19 minutes. She does not pace. At 14:56, Stahl finds Rylan at the edge of the corridor near the war room door. He does not approach from the front. He comes alongside him, the geometry of a man who is about to say something that does not need an audience and has already decided that the audience is not the point. Derek, not Captain. I need you to stop the review you're running on the woman in the utility room. Rylan keeps his eyes on the corridor. She's a credential irregularity. Active security review. I know what the credentials say. I'm asking you to stop the review. You're asking me to. I'm telling you, quietly, that you do not know what you are touching right now. I need you to suspend the review and hold everything exactly where it is until I have had 5 minutes to verify something. Rylan turns to look at him. The expression of a man who genuinely respects the person he is looking at, and is also genuinely certain that person is wrong. Victor, she named Hollow Reed. She named Bravo 7. That's not a credential problem, that's a breach. Or, Stahl says, and his voice does not move a single register, it's something else entirely. 5 minutes. Rylan looks at him for 2 full seconds. Then, review is already in progress. He walks back into the war room. Stahl stands in the corridor. His hands are flat against his sides. His jaw is set. He stands that way for 4 seconds, then walks to the utility room door and knocks twice. She opens it. He looks at her face for 4 seconds without speaking. Then he looks at her left arm, the angle she has been holding it at since she arrived, the sleeve sitting exactly where it needs to sit. "Show me," he says. She pulls the sleeve back. The tattoo is on the inside of her left forearm, just above the wrist. Not a unit marker, not a personal design. A ghost, rendered in precise, clean black lines, the specific stylized figure used by exactly one classified program in the history of naval special warfare. A program that was officially closed in 2019, with the number 7 beneath it and a typeface that Stahl recognizes, because he was shown it once, in a room he should not have been in, by a man who explained what it meant and then told him he would never see it again. Below the ghost, a 4-character designation. His hand stops. not reaching for anything, not doing anything. Just stopped in the space beside his body, while the rest of him rebuilds around what it is looking at. Something flickers across his face, just for a moment, and then something settles. And the something that settles is not surprise. It is the particular stillness of a man arriving at a confirmation he was not certain he would ever receive. He says 2 words, not loudly, not to anyone in the corridor, because the corridor is empty, to the air between them, in the voice of a man whose body has confirmed something his mind spent several minutes resisting. Iron Ghost. At 15:02, 3 vehicles arrive at the surface entrance. Not in the way that authorized vehicles arrive at a classified installation, signed in, cleared, parked in designated spaces with the unhurried rhythm of credentialed personnel following standard procedure. In the way that priority-level vehicles arrive when the priority was established at a level that does not process through standard procedure. 3 black SUVs in the surface drop zone, stopping with the controlled precision of drivers who do not ease off the accelerator until the destination is already under the vehicle. Doors opening before the vehicles have finished moving. Figures stepping out in dark service dress with identification already in hand, not being reached for, already out, because these are people who do not use the 4 seconds of retrieval time when 4 seconds are available for something more useful. The surface entrance officer will say, later, that it did not occur to him to ask them to wait. On the internal camera feed, someone at the monitoring station in the war room sees the surface level and says something quiet to the person next to them. That person stands up from the planning table. The 3 people nearest the war room door turn and move to where they can see the corridor. A whisper moves through the room, not a sentence, just a register. Just the particular frequency of something unexpected arriving at a facility designed to exclude the unexpected. By the time the elevator opens on the subgrade level and the figures step into the operations corridor, all 31 people in the war room have positioned themselves where they can see through the glass. The mission architecture table is temporarily abandoned. The satellite feeds run on without anyone watching them. The corridor. The war room door opened from the inside. Ryland stepped out. He took in the arriving figures, 2 federal agents in dark suits with credentials already past his authority level, and behind them a rear admiral in service dress whites with the kind of composed expression that has been trained and maintained over decades. And behind the admiral, 2 more figures carrying identification that made the admiral's credentials look like a lobby visitor badge at a mid-tier contractor. His face went through 3 phases in approximately 5 seconds. Surface recognition, the geography of recalculation, and beneath both, something that had the actual architecture of genuine fear, not the performed kind. Not the kind a man uses when he wants a room to believe he is dangerous. The kind that arrives when the load-bearing structure underneath everything you have built turns out not to have been load-bearing. The rear admiral moved past him without making eye contact. He stopped at the utility room. Stahl was standing outside it. The admiral looked at Stahl, and Stahl looked back at him with the expression of a man who had made a choice 40 minutes ago in a corridor, and was standing in the result of that choice, and would make it again. She stepped out of the utility room. The rear admiral looked at her for 3 seconds, the specific 3 seconds of a man reconciling a file he has read multiple times with the person the file describes. "Commander," he said, not announcing her, acknowledging her, the word carrying the weight of a Kia report. 14 months of blackout operation and an intelligence architecture that no one in the building behind him had believed could be built by one person operating alone. And that had been. The war room detonated, not with noise, with the specific physics of 31 people ceasing all voluntary motion within a single second. A chair scraped back 2 inches without its occupant intending movement. A tablet struck the mission architecture table. Not dropped, set down too fast, by hands that stopped receiving instructions when the mind stopped processing the sequence correctly. The ventilation duct in the ceiling became the loudest sound in the room. A pen rolled from the edge of the planning table and hit the concrete floor, and the sound of it, small, clean, specific, filled the space where every larger sound had been. The silence has mass. It has pressure. It presses against every surface in the room, the classified mission boards, the satellite feeds running on the side screens, the targeting overlays covering the architecture table, and it holds there, dense with the effort of 31 people simultaneously recalibrating everything they had decided was true in the past 45 minutes. A boot shifts on the floor. Someone's badge swings against a chair back. The small sounds fill the silence and make it feel more total, not less. The Rear Admiral moved to the war room door. He stood in the frame, facing 31 people who were already facing him, and spoke in the voice of a man who has delivered briefings in rooms that were not supposed to exist and has not needed additional register to fill a space in years. For the record, and for the clear understanding of every person currently present at this facility, this individual is Commander Reyes, Special Programs Directorate, operating under classified operational designation Iron Ghost. A pause that functioned as a formal period. Her authority at this installation, and with respect to Operation Hollow Reed, supersedes every rank currently present in this building, including my own. The targeting architecture that Hollow Reed has been built on was developed and field verified by Commander Reyes during a classified extended operation from 2022 through 2024. Every piece of intelligence you have been working with for the past 14 months was generated by her in the field under conditions that are themselves classified above the level of this operation. Every person in this room answers to her authority. His hand came up. Not quickly. Deliberately, his hand moved from his side in measured stages. Arm rising, hand finding the precise angle at the brow, the formal geometry of military respect, rendered slowly enough for 31 people to register every component of it. It stayed. 4 counts. Crisp at the edge. The agents followed, not military trained, not crisp, but present and correct in their intent. Then the war room began to move, the Admiral's aide first, then the intelligence officers at the nearest table, each one running the same calculation, each one arriving at the only answer available to it, each one raising their hand with the particular expression of a person who is doing something they understand completely and cannot quite believe they are doing. The mission planners, the communications staff, the 2 SIGINT officers near the secondary screen, one of whom had been carrying certain quiet doubts for 11 days and had never found the right moment to raise them, and was now understanding why those doubts had felt the way they felt. The operators who had been planning Hollow Reed for 2 weeks on intelligence, they were now understanding in an entirely different way, going up one by one. Each person's comprehension arriving and resolving in real time, in front of every other person in the room who was watching it happen. Not simultaneously. Each one on their own timeline. Each one making their own calculation and finding the same answer. The 3 engineers at the back wall, the logistics coordinator who had been skeptical of Ryland's handling of the situation since 1415 and was now no longer conflicted about that skepticism. The young officer nearest the door who had been on base for 40 days and would tell this story for the rest of his career and never quite find the right words for it. One after another. 31 people. Stahl raised his last. He had been standing 6 feet from the Rear Admiral since before the Admiral spoke, and he had not moved from that position. and he had not hurried. He raised his hand now, 63 years old, 38 years of service behind him, the kind of face that has forgotten how to be surprised by most things, and his salute was different from the 30 that had gone up before his. And every person in the room with enough experience to see the difference saw it. Not the salute of a man following the calculation, the salute of a man who had watched and built the picture piece by piece, and who had made a choice, alone in a corridor, without an audience, without anyone to confirm or deny what he was deciding, to trust what he knew before anyone else in the building was ready to know it. A chosen salute. Not commanded. Known. She returned it. Rollin did not salute. His hands were at his sides in the complete absence of everything they had always known what to do with. One of the federal agents moved to his left, the other to his right. "Captain Rollin, if you'll come with us," the flat professional register of someone who has delivered that sentence many times to many men who were absolutely certain they were beyond its reach, and who has long since stopped being surprised by what their faces do when they find out otherwise. He went through the far end of the corridor, quietly, without a word that needed keeping. She did not watch him leave. The war room cleared for a different kind of briefing, the kind that begins when everything a room has been working from gets reoriented around new information, and the new information is the person who just walked in. 31 people who had spent 2 weeks planning Hollow Reed without knowing who built it were about to plan it with her at the table. She sat down at the head of it. The briefing ran until 2100. By the time it ended, the mission architecture had been revised in 4 places. The operator assignments had been adjusted to account for route intelligence she provided from direct field observation. And the 0300 window had been confirmed as viable in a way it had not been fully confirmed before she walked into the room. The people who had laughed at the version of the story circulating at 1415 had stopped laughing around 1500. None of them mentioned the earlier version of events for the rest of the evening, and most of them would not mention it again. He blocked her entry to show her what authority looked like when it stood in a doorway and said no. He forgot that she had drawn the map every person in that war room was navigating from, and that the doorway had never been the obstacle he believed it was. Later, after the briefing, after the operations order had been revised and finalized, after 31 people had spent 2 hours understanding the intelligence they had been working with in an entirely different way, she went outside. The base perimeter road at this latitude in the hour after sunset carries the particular quality of warm concrete, releasing the heat it has held all day. The ground radiating it back at the level of your hands, the air cooling from above while the surface stays warm. Her watch reads 1943. The sky above the tree line at the western edge of the base is the blue going to black of full nautical twilight, the first stars appearing in the order they always appear in, the order she has used to navigate from when every other system was dark and the mission had no margin for instruments. Hollow Reed runs in 7 hours. The network she spent 14 months mapping in conditions that will not appear in any unclassified debrief will be dismantled before the sun is back up. 14 operators who died without an explanation that anyone was allowed to file will have one, not publicly, not with ceremony, but on record, in the right rooms, in the hands of the people who needed to know why. She is not done. The list has one name at the bottom she has not yet confirmed. A logistics facilitator who moved money through 3 jurisdictions and a pattern she traced to an address that went cold 6 weeks ago. He moved. He is careful. He has been careful for a long time. He will not be careful enough forever. Tomorrow is a different problem. Tonight is what tonight is. Justice isn't loud. It's patient, and the most dangerous people in any room are always the ones who know how to wait. Somewhere, in a city she is not yet authorized to name, a surveillance photograph was taken 8 days ago. A man at a cafe table, partial profile, 43 degrees off optimal angle. Her analysts have been working it for 6 days. This morning, before she came to this building, they sent her 4 words. She knows where he is. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVP Stories for more.